What is this place?
I brought you here to bury Alan's cat.
Daddy, is church all right?
Why, Judd?
I had my reasons.
I dreamed he got hit by a car and you and Mr. Crandall buried him in the Pet Sematary.
What did we do tonight, Judd?
What we did, Lois, was a secret.
Hi there, boys and girls. This is Nick and George from Hollow Weekly talking. This week's episode of How Low Can We Go? Talking about Pet Sematary. That's all, folks. See you next week.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
I was watching the
Episode
movie.
over.
I was watching the movie. I was like, all right, to do Fred Gwynn, it's in the back of the throat, and I gotta bring it down. Boy, don't get hit by that truck now, that boy.
I grew up in New England. I've never heard anyone in New England talk like that. Like, that was just pure Fred Gwynn.
It's a super unique voice.
Yeah, it's super amazing, though.
I really like it. Anything with Herman Munster in it, I'm a instant,
We're already in.
yeah, instant fan. All right, so welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. We're doing another episode of How Low Can We Go, where we start at 59% on Rotten Tomatoes, work our way down 1 point at a time, trying to see, well, how low can we go until we hit a bad horror film.
And I'm realizing this week trying to bring justice to the world, because what the hell? This movie is...
Yeah, there's no reason at all.
46, 45?
46%. Yeah, 46%.
Sick.
Unless we're wrong, then it's 45. We know it's not 47.
I know it's not good.
Yeah, the percentage is not good, but the movie is excellent.
Yes.
Very, very good. And I feel kind of bad for all the Stephen King films that are like because we just did Silver Bullet, 2 episodes ago?
Right.
And that one's great.
And Stephen King wrote this one.
Yeah. And had a little
And that's
cameo in
actually
it.
a really cool story behind this movie, because Pet Sematary was never going to get made.
Mm-hmm.
They shelved it, and the people who believed in it and wanted to make it a movie, they kept pushing it, and everyone said in 1980, what is this, 86, 88, whatever?
89?
Wait,
88? Yeah.
late 80s, everyone was like, the time for Stephen King movies is over. You're on the right side of history. Good job.
Yeah, definitely
So
not.
the studios-
Nothing this year's coming out. I can't think.
No. Stephen King, la passe. But they kept saying Stephen King movies are over, and there was a writer's strike. And the studios got in a panic.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, what are we going to do next year? We'll have, our release schedule is going to be a big hole.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not going to be any movies in it. They're like, does anyone have a perfect script that needs no new rewrites? Because the writer's on strike. A writer on strike, can we just film a script? Does anyone have a script? And someone in the back row of the room is like, ooh, me. Pet Sematary.
Oh, but did it happen multiple times? They're like, don't say it.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Don't say
it. Stop bringing up Pet Sematary. But they were like, yeah, no Pet Sematary. We got the script. And they started filming it. And it's amazing. Right?
And especially now, everyone talks about it because Wonder Woman did good. It's one of the few horror films directed by a woman.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And this movie has some style to it. It's so weird. It has this I almost like, because they played like some Ramones because Ramones did the song Pet Sematary. It has this like kind of punk rock vibe.
Totally.
Like it's like a punk rock icing on it, and then underneath it is like a Stephen King horror film. But it's just enough to give it a
and
bam.
it's super unsettling, actually, because the truck driver, who I think is getting high and barreling down the road, and he's going to run over Gage. Mm-hmm. He's listening to a Ramones tune.
I think so.
Right? No, yeah, I know he is, but he's like, that's the thing is like, that's probably the worst product placement in history of movies.
Not for the Ramones.
Even the Ramones. Are you kidding me? Like, if you call someone up and be like, we're going to include your song, it's going to be playing when a truck runs over an infant. Like, that sucks. But there's like a weird,
band,
there's a weird attitude, reverse attitude thing going on in this movie. Like, where it's cool, but it's also like scary, right? Like,
everything about it's weird. Like the first thing I notice is, and they made it pretty apparent, is like the couple's not like a super happy, loving couple. Like they have that moment, like when they get to the house, they're like, "Oh, our house." But everything after that, I'm like, why are these two together? Like they just do not seem happy.
Yeah, it's super awkward, and it's like, So I want to talk a little bit about this movie in the context of the movies that were being made at the time, because this is like the height of like the zombie slasher, like, you know, whatever era, but not the peak era, like the cheesed out era, right? So like there's some crap coming out in the late 90s. Like the 80s are running out of gas, right? And this movie's unlike the other movies that are around it. But that's the weird thing about, like, there's this scene where the wife comes out and they had just had a really bad fight about her making her husband promise to the kids that everything was going to work out all right with the surgery on Church. And he was pissed that she made him do that because he's a doctor. He's like, things can happen. Like, I know things can happen. I want to promise that, you know? Mm-hmm. And then she walks out, and the next, like, 2 minutes, she talks like a zombie. She's like, are we okay, Doc? Are we okay, Doc? We friendly, Doc? Are we good, Doc? You're going to have a good day, Doc. It was like this weird rote, like... So it was really hard to tell if that was, like, bad acting.
I was going to say.
Or... just like a creepy addition to the movie, right?
Yeah.
Because that was like, she was delivering the lines like...
And even the person who was like doing, what was it? She wasn't like their maid, but she was like helping with the laundry and shit.
I love her.
Like,
she's
even
one of my all-stars for that movie.
Had like
she did the same thing.
Yeah, she did the same thing. And there was a line, she mentions her back or something, or her belly having problems, and then the wife's coming through with the groceries, and she just looks at her and goes, okay. And then goes inside. She's like really cold to her. I was like, I kind of
yeah, but that's so New England. Like when the doc asks her, like, how is your stomach pain? And she's like, no better, no worse. That's so New England. Like, I grew up with that shit. Like, that's the answer you get for everything.
Everything sucks.
No, everything's like, no, you don't know. We're not giving you a non-answer, right? No better, no worse, right? But she, like, that was so one of the things about the How Low Can We Go series is we're trying to find movies that are clearly underrated, right? So I don't mean to be cold about this, New England segue, right? But movies are made up of pieces, right? So when I think about pieces that make up a movie, cinematography in this movie, amazing.
Yeah.
Score in this movie, amazing.
And unsettling.
Direction in this movie, amazing, right? Acting, we'll get there. Some amazing.
There's a few
some
good chess
not.
pieces in there. Yeah.
Right, exactly right. Fred Wynn's a god.
Stephen King's cameo. Oscar.
Amazing. Right? He's also a god. Like, but there are so many things. Setting. The setting is amazing, and the remake. This is where I'm scared of the remake. Like, I'm super psyched for a Pet Sematary remake, but they're not going to film it in Maine. It's not going to have the charm that this has, right? And the commitment that this crew has. And that's one of the things you find out when you watch the Pet Sematary documentary, The Unearthed and Untold, is they really appreciated the actors getting isolated out in Maine and just having to, like, kind of live in the heads of their characters, right? It's not like being in LA, you know, like bumping studio, coke and then you go to the studio and, like, you know, showing up in a place that looks like Maine for a second and then, like, you know, like, whatever, you're stuck in Maine. Like, it's kind of boring. Like,
you're there,
right? You're there. So, like, there's the setting and all that stuff is really, really working for this movie, and I don't think you can duplicate that in a remake. So, like, I'm a little worried about the remake part of it, but there's just so many amazing things going on, and the point is that if a movie's made of, like, slice it up, like 10 different parts, like 7 of the parts of this movie are excellent.
Yeah.
So how do you rate it not fresh? Fuck you.
Yeah, there's a few parts where it's a little weird. Like, for me, the one thing I noticed was, like, at least for me, the film nothing really happens until he digs up the little boy. They have the whole cat thing. The one girl hangs herself. Like, not, to be honest, not a lot happens, like, up until that point when the shit starts to pick up.
Okay, so yes, I agree with that to a point, but, like, in my, like, acting all-stars part of this, like, I give the medals to Fred Gwynne, and then the woman who hangs herself on the table. She was amazing. I cannot believe that she's alive. I thought she died of cancer. She was so convincing. Like, or died of suicide, but I thought she was like, I mean, just so convincing. Like, she was amazing. Like, there's bit part people in this movie that are really, really good and amazing. The weakness of the movie probably in the acting department. I actually really like Gage too. Not a big fan of his sister.
No.
I thought she kind of like, I don't know if it was the writing or there's this weird moment where they're flying the kite and she like calls someone like a dirty shit or a little shit or whatever.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm like, who talks like that when they're like?
And then when she falls off the tire, you can tell.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
they
no,
just sort of laid down some crying underneath because she was not selling it at all.
Totally. But that's another thing is, so obviously the movie's dated now, but one of the complaints that horror fans always have about movies is they're not scary. And this is one of the movies that actually was terrifying. And the amazing thing is, when you think about movies that are actually scary, right, like The Exorcist or Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever, the first thing that pops in your head is like the iconic figure, right?
Yeah.
So like Regan / Pazuzu or Freddy or Jason, right? In this movie, I think the scariest person is actually Zelda. And that's weird because she's like a side part of the movie.
Yeah.
And Gage is scary, but he's also like not the main focus of the movie, right? And Church is scary, but Church is also like the main focus of the movie is Fred Gwynn and then the married couple.
Yeah.
Right.
And even then, it's more about the husband because the wife is in it way less than the dude.
Totally. Right. So, but it's weird because this movie has this weird combination of the scariest things are kind of off to the side, which I kind of like because it was like it's not building up like an iconic. Like if you came to me and said I want you to market Pet Sematary, like we're gonna do a 20th anniversary Blu-ray release, we're gonna market it, I would go Fred Gwynn all the way.
Yeah.
Right? And Fred Gwynn is not scary. Well,
he's Herman Munster, so people.
It's not that he's
sort of
funny, but I mean, actually, he is scary because his philosophy is really bleak. But he's not the scary thing in the movie. So this movie has a focus in a whole different direction than the way a lot of horror movies are built. A lot of horror movies are built with a dichotomy. It's Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, or it's Freddy and Nancy
And it's
Thompson.
like with that, it's like.
But this is off balance. This movie's off balance, which is kind of cool.
It's sort of like Fred Gwynn and then this philosophy about that. The way I sort of think about the film is it's like sitting around a campfire and then me telling everyone like, okay, so there's some shit around us. Don't do that shit. Okay. All right. And then I pour the fire out and then everyone's like, so we're going to do all that. And I'm like, no.
That's
Please,
totally true.
Please don't.
I think the worst part of this movie, the thing that's the easiest to criticize is because I don't think the era even knew better. I don't want to make excuses for it, but
Yeah.
oh my God, on the nose. Oh my God, so many things are on the nose.
Yes.
Holy crap. Like there are like 5-minute discussions of, I hope no one gets run over in the road. What if someone gets run over in the road?
That was
I hope no one ever dies. Like it was so on the nose.
What I think balanced it out though is like even though they were on the nose, like this was one of my notes, is like anytime they shot, like the camera was looking across the street, every fucking time a truck was right by every time. They could come back and forth. It'd be like it'd be like Cars 4.
No, they really went for it.
And I love that. I even made a note at the end. There's even a toy truck in the kitchen.
Yep. That's a good observation.
I love that. I got a whole list of notes that I loved about the fucking movie.
And then the wife hitchhiked on a truck on the way home.
Yeah, you think I was trying to wonder if like the name of the truck company. I was wondering if that had any significance to anything in the world. If it was just a random.
No, I think it just sounds bland. So I think that's Stephen King's point is like the real horrors of life come from like
Just unexpected dumb
like,
shit.
just like dumb, bland shit like whatever. But I think one of the things that Stephen King is amazing, if not the best ever at, is he's really good at doing this thing where he kind of messages to you that there's some kind of failure. There's an
I see where you're going with that,
insecurity thing, right? So he was super insecure. He was insecure about his talent. He was insecure because he's a raging alcoholic. He's conquered it, but he was insecure that he would be a good dad, which came out in The Shining and all that stuff. And he's insecure about, like, when people make you promises that they're going to deliver. I think it's one of the things that agitates him most about Donald Trump, and why he tweets at Trump all the time is Trump's like, oh yeah, everything's going to be great. Make America great again, like whatever. And that's like the worst thing for Stephen King is he doesn't, that stance of, I've got this, I'm going to make everything all right. Like, he's instantly skeptical of that.
He's like, no, you have
no, he's
no
like, no,
idea.
you guys have nothing. You don't got this, right? Like, so one of the underlying themes of this that the movie caught really well is there's a bunch of times where the characters are forced to say everything's going to be all right. Like, kids turn to them and they're like, promise me everything's going to be all right.
Oh, yeah.
Promise me my cat's going to be all right. Promise me. And they're reluctant to do it at first because I think that's how Stephen King feels.
Yeah.
Right? And then eventually they get sucked into that moment. And there's actually an alternate ending that was shot for Pet Sematary where the girl, the daughter, calls and gets her dead zombie mom on the phone at the end. And she goes, is Daddy all right? And the mom goes, yes, Daddy is all right. We're all right. We're going to be a happy family now. Like, that is the falsest promise. You're a dead zombie mom across from the guy you're about to kill with your dead son. like, I mean, it's all crashed and burned. Like, this.
I wish they would just cut that in.
Right?
Did they shoot it?
They shot it.
Yeah,
Totally shot
cut
it.
that fucking ending
Absolutely
in,
shot it.
and this movie bounces up like 20 points, easy.
Absolutely shot it. And that's the thing is, like, I think the basic premise of this is that Stephen King is suspicious of adult false promises that we've got this and nothing can go wrong from here. And he just has to subvert that and break it down, right? Which he does in The Mist, and he does.
And also, like, when things don't go the way they promised, the parents can't own up to that.
Yes, absolutely.
They're like, everything's wrong, we'll make it fine. Like, you can't admit that you have
which
no
is the
control of the
classic
situation.
parent move, like, switch out the cat, right?
Yeah.
I'll buy a cat that looks like your cat while you're gone. Like, everything's fine.
Because then that false promise ends up becoming a lie, and then that lie ends up killing him.
Absolutely.
And that was one of the last notes I wrote. What I loved about the character, he could not just tell himself, like, this is how it is now. Live with that.
Right. But that's the whole doctor, and that's one of the things everyone talks about in this movie about how Monkey's Paw was an influence and, like, it's a zombie thing, like, whatever. But one of the interesting things is there's a huge Frankenstein thing going on here. He's a fucking doctor. He can't accept that death is going to beat him. He has to try to outwit death at every move, right? Like, and every time he tries to bring something back, it comes back in a way he didn't anticipate.
If they would have focused more on that rather than him pleasing the daughter, I think this movie as a story, like as a screenplay,
would be more cohesive.
Yeah.
Yep,
because I love the idea. Like, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh shit,
right?
Like goosebumps. Like, if he was, because that reminds me of the one episode of Penny Dreadful when he first meets Frankenstein. He's like, I'm going to reverse the flow of the river of life, because he has that mindset. And I'm like, man, if they had just done that with the dad, because I like that actor.
Yeah,
I think he was really pretty fucking good in the movie.
Totally.
But I just the whole time I just wanted to say, fucking just move on, man. Like, just fucking get over it. The one guy who I really liked, was it Pascal?
Pascal, yeah.
Pascal.
Yeah.
I keep thinking
or Paxcal as the daughter says.
Pascal.
Yeah.
Whenever I think of the chameleon from Rapunzel, Pascal.
Totally.
So I was like,
Absolutely.
I can't get the name wrong. So Pascal.
You gotta get it.
I didn't want to say it like wrong and then it'd be that. I fucking loved him. because he just comes out of nowhere, and he's just sort of like I like how he is legitimately good.
Yes.
Like he has no bad, and he's like, please don't no, hey,
Well,
don't go that way.
I don't know that he's entirely good, but like
He wasn't completely evil. Like most people in that film, or in a film like that.
no, he absolutely was not evil. The thing is that it was sort of the way it's portrayed, and I think it's because we have. I'm gonna get killed for this. I think it's because we have a female director, and I think one of the other themes of the movie is that men are inherently not trustworthy, right? I mean, literally, the film literally calls it out. The mantra of the film, besides sometimes
they have that line.
sometimes dead is better, is the mantra of the film. But the other mantra of the film is a man's heart is stonier, and we keep secrets, and they have that thing, right? So like in the documentary, the actor who played Pascal, who was amazing, he said that his copy of his script, he covered it with pictures of angels because he was trying to remind himself that he's not a scary character. He's not a ghost. He's not a zombie. He's a guiding angel. He's really trying to help Lewis, right? So he kept reminding himself that I'm trying to help him. But the way he played it was still creepy because he kept smiling. Like it was like he had an inside joke that he wasn't telling anyone.
Yeah.
So
well, he
he's-
made a few
right?
jokes too. He's
He made some actual
when
jokes.
he leaves when he's in the truck, he goes, someone's like, "Will you be all right?" Or "Are you okay?" He goes, "I'm not." And then
Well, that actually is my favorite line of the whole movie, and I don't think that was a joke. But he did make a bunch of jokes. But when he took off in the truck, I think that was literally. So we were talking about how Stephen King is super skeptical about we've got this, we've got this, right? We got this. Don't worry about it. We're in a car. We're gonna drive out in the mist. We're gonna get out of here. Don't worry, got this. You're gonna end up killing yourself and like whatever, but you don't got this, right? So like it was a more on the nose version of that because it's still a young Stephen King, right? Like that's still early on in his career. But the what happens is that she's going in to get killed by her zombie child.
yeah,
And I think that Pascal knows that he was trying to help, but it's been too late and everything's gone like the worst way possible. And he goes, "This is the end of the line for me." And he gets in the truck and she literally is like, I'm sure everything's going to be okay, which is the theme of the movie. Parents keep saying I promise it's all going to be okay. She's like, "I'm sure it's going to be okay." He's like, "I'm not." and then takes off. I mean, that is literally a Stephen King cameo. Like that's a Stephen King philosophy cameo. He's like, "You think it's gonna be okay? I'm not.
You just have
You don't know it's gonna be okay, right?" He takes off.
my favorite line from that guy was in the beginning when him and Lewis. Doc, we'll go with Doc. I like Doc. Sounds cooler. So Doc's always a cool
It
name.
makes me feel Rocky.
Yeah.
Apollo Creed.
It's just cool shit.
Yep.
Is when he's showing him around the Pet Sematary, and he goes, "I have to be dreaming," and then he goes, "Who said anything about dreaming?" I love that because that's what they always say.
That is so good.
They always say that shit in films. And he's like, no one actually said anything
That
about
is
dreaming.
so good.
And then I like how he actually he did walk around and woke up with the dirt. I really dug that. Some of the other stuff. I'm looking at my notes. Super awesome. Every time they showed a road, a truck was barreling down it. I just couldn't get over that. In fact, it hurt my ears a few times because the movie is relatively quiet.
Yes.
And every time they jacked up the audio was when a truck came barreling down.
That's a good point.
It was always like, Fred Gwynne's always like, rah, 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 and then the wife's like, oh, let's fucking
Come
love
have
you.
a
Rah! Goes through and you're like, shit! Is that our transition for this film? Was that something we all decided on?
That was actually super
pre-production?
cool. And that's a very New England thing because it's a very, very quiet, area.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they like asphalted over and then all of a sudden it's a major interstate, like you're just living in a quiet cabin and all of a sudden
Just fucking
horrible
every time. And I also liked the amount of work that had to be put in to bury someone
I'm so glad you said that.
in the circle, That was my favorite thing.
I'm so glad you said
He
that.
takes he had like a pickaxe at first, right? Or something like that.
Yep.
And he hits it and it almost bounces or doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
He
and Fred
looks-
Wynn's like the ground here is like thin or stony or like
Yeah.
I forget what he says, like whatever. And the thing rebounds and almost like kills
Yeah.
him. Like,
But my favorite part about it was he knew it was going to take a while and he just
lights up.
lights up a cigarette. And it goes from him smoking a cigarette in the day to him smoking a cigarette at night. And he's just now getting to the bottom.
Yeah, this is
He's like,
totally
I'm not helping you.
No,
No, because you can't. Because you have to bury your
You have
own.
to bury your own, right?
That
That was fucking amazing. And that actually, one of my favorite things is, so the Lewis is learning things through this movie. So one of the things that and he's learning bad lessons, but one of the things he learns is that first trip to the Pet Sematary, the bad Pet Sematary, Fred Gwynn is like, don't stop, don't look down, don't hesitate, don't have doubt, like whatever. And that's actually super metaphorical.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah,
imagine
yeah.
someone in Stephen King's position where like he thought, do I play it safe and live my life as a teacher, or do I go for it and be like a writer? And he went for it, but then his family went broke and he just started drinking and everything could have gone to hell. Like it has gone to hell for hundreds of people like him that we've never heard of, right?
Yeah.
So like he knew that it was a big risk, like, and he just thought to himself, just do it, just write it, just throw it out in the world. Don't look down, don't stop, right? So he's got this character, and the character's getting this warning, like, don't stop, don't look down. And he looks down and he like tumbles almost to his death, right?
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, when he's taking his son, which is like a bad use of this lesson, he's muttering to himself, I'm not going to look down this time. I'm not going to look down. I'm not going to stop. But he learned, right? Like he just takes his son and charges through this fucking thing. And like it's a weird kind of cool thing that Stephen King does where he takes a good lesson that could be in a self-help book and like puts it in a situation where that shouldn't be happening. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't rebury your son, like whatever. But he learns, right? Like that character learned that. And I thought that was actually one of his best moments of that character when he was like literally telling himself, yeah, I'm not going to fall. Not 2 times. I'm not going to fall 2 times. Like I'm going to, like whatever. And actually what's really cool is when you watch the end of the movie, there's this amazing glitchy moment where they burn the house, and Lewis is coming out of the house, and he's carrying a dead body, and he's like coming out of the house while it's burning. And if you watch the movie closely, the house goes up in flames, and the actor flinches and turns his face away. And it's because they only had one shot to do that scene. They burned the facade of the house, and it got out of control, and the whole house burned. They promised the people who actually own that house in real life that we're only going to burn like the fake prop part, and your house is going to be fine. And they burned the whole fucking thing to the ground, and they had to rebuild it for them to pay them back, whatever. And if you watch the actor, he's coming out, and the heat was like so intense. He's carrying the dead body, and all of a sudden he just completely turns his head away because they were like, we only got one take to do this. And the fire gave him a second-degree burn on his face
God damn.
while he was walking out. Like, I mean, these people were not fucking around. Which is one of the reasons this movie is so amazing. It's so genuine. Right?
The other thing, that's why, like, when it comes to like a remake, I'm wondering if it has that charm. I'd almost rather it have. This is gonna sound weird. I'd rather almost it not be a great film, but have that charm. You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't want it to be a bad film, but I just like I really, because it's not like the same team who's doing like it or anything like it's a completely different thing on its own. And I don't know, just knowing how like some horror films happen.
Well, I'm actually psyched for the remake. I'm a big fan of the original. I just think if there is a lot of cheesy overacting and some honestly just
who's doing it. Has anyone been attached, or is it just like
I don't remember, but
thing?
There's some honest mistakes from Stephen King because I think that he of all the things he ever wrote, I think this was the most hand grenade thing he wrote. I think he was afraid to actually hold it. When he wrote it, he said after he was done with it, he put it in like a dresser and like shoved it away. And he was like, no one's going to want to read this.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So like, I don't think like, I think it was one of his most successful books and one of his least successful at the same time because he was still juggling,
Yeah.
like what he was, right? Misery's a way more balanced, way slicker, way more pro version of what this is.
Yeah.
Right? But, the thing is, if they can do a remake that takes a lot of the cheese factor out of this
Then it'll be.
and keep some of the charm, then it's going to be super cool. But you're not going to have Fred Gwynn.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to shoot it in Maine.
You know who
I don't think
who would
you can do
cast?
Zelda
Who
again.
would you cast?
Oh,
To replace
my God.
Fred
I'd rather
Gwynn.
kill myself than answer that question.
Nope, J.K. Simmons. That's your answer.
I can see that.
Somehow.
I can see that.
That's just the first one.
Yeah, I get
no,
it.
and I'm always the one who's like, give remakes a chance.
Totally.
So like, I don't want to like just like throw it completely under the truck. but I don't know, because this was my first viewing because I actually watched the documentary
Right.
that we did for Unearthed and Untold. And then when I went to go watch it, I watched the beginning. I was like, I don't remember any of this shit. So
I haven't seen this yet.
yeah, I haven't seen it yet. Just one of the last things I wanted to talk on my notes, other than the fact that I love that Fred Gwynn goes, I have a present for you, while pulling out a knife for the kid. I love that. This was actually the first, because like you read like 10 books a week, like read while you drive, while you shave, and all that shit. And I don't read a whole lot of books. I do the audiobooks and shit like that. This was the first Stephen King or film that I knew was a adaptation of a book or whatever, whatever the fuck you want to call it. This is the first movie I watched where I thought to myself, oh shit, I can probably see how the characters in the book might be, if not equal, but more frightening.
Yes.
Is it more frightening in the book?
It is more frightening in the book, which is always the case. But one of the amazing things about this movie to me is that I went back and reread the book like 2 years ago, and you just can't read Judd Crandall without hearing Fred Gwynn's delivery in your head, right? So like the movie and the book kind of joined, which is really rare.
So it might be better for like someone like me. So now that I know the
absolutely. But the book is darker, and it's the hard thing to do is so one of the things that Stephen King got away with for a long time, and might still be honestly getting away with, but I think he got better at it, is that he's kind of melodramatic and kind of cheeseball.
Yeah.
Right. So like that Netflix series that I really liked, the Kennedy assassination one with the numbers I can't ever remember.
the Hulu one.
Yeah, the Hulu. Hulu one, right.
The J.J. Abrams
11 something, right.
Yeah, 11/27.
Yeah, but it has the corniest ending ever, but it earns it, right? And early Stephen King had trouble earning like the cheese, right? So, when you read the book, he's such a good writer that the cheesy part of it is kind of like you don't notice it. But when you try to strip it down and put it in a movie, it gets way more obvious, right? So I think that's the part where the movie struggles the most, and I think that's the part where reading the book is the most rewarding versus the movie, is that he's just such a good writer.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it was just a weird thing that I wanted to note, because it was because I've seen a lot, like we did Silver Bullet. We just watched the Carrie remake not too long ago.
Yep.
But this is the first time where, like, when I saw Gage walking around and leaving like the bloody or muddy
muddy footprints,
muddy footprints.
Totally.
For some reason, when I was watching that part, I was imagining
how he wrote it,
how he wrote it, and how I would read it, and then what my mind would do with it.
It's totally true.
And that's the first time that fucking happened. So I was like, holy shit, like that's.
It's totally true. It's better written than seen. Like the descriptions that he puts in that book are so intense and dark, and
I do think
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
But it's still translated very well in the film because the film definitely has a creepy fucking vibe to it. Even for as bright as it is, because a lot of horror films now are really dark and they try to like.
Well, yeah, but I mean, honestly, that's the other thing is like I mean, this is just math, right? So like, what's the fastest you think you could read Pet Sematary? How long would that take you? It's like a 500-page book.
Well, see, like when I do read, I usually just like read like a few chapters and put it down.
That's fine, but
Go
like
back to
if
it.
you just added it up, it's going to take what, like 4 or 5 days?
Yeah.
Right. So you watch this in what, 2 hours?
Yeah.
Right. There's just more in a book.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's more
More
opportunity.
investment, yeah.
Right. So like Stephen King has more chance to convey more things to you in a book, where you can get more invested in the characters than you do in a movie. That's part of the tricks of can a movie even pull this off, like as an adaptation? But that's the thing, is where I go back to the original, where we started this, which was, what are you expecting from a horror movie? So like, you're expecting good cinematography, great music, good acting, good pacing, and then ultimately you're expecting to be scared. And this movie
did every one of
does
those.
all of those things. Right.
And what's funny is watching Unearthed and Untold, everyone, and even on like some of the subreddits where they talk about like scary horror movie moments, people always talked about Zelda. So then because I had watched scenes from Pet Sematary, I never like pulling all the way through, and I never understood it. I was like, Zelda's not that scary. And then when I watched the film, it made a lot more fucking sense as to why she's scared. Because for me, the scariness came when the wife saw her and Zelda like ran towards the camera, like like in a really unnatural way. She's like, "I'm gonna twist your spines, so you'll never leave."
Yeah.
You're always in pain. I was like, "Fuck!" Now I get it.
Yeah, and that's the part where you realize that they're working together.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's one of the things that Stephen King is really good at, right? Like when in Christine, like you have an old guy who owns a car, and he plays on the insecurities and the emotions of the young kid who buys the car.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, the young kid is kind of like possessed by the old angry guy. Like they've joined.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And Zelda is a scary moment in someone's emotional life where they had to care for her. She never should have been left alone with her by her parents. Mm-hmm. And that's scary in and of itself. Like if you were dating someone and they told you that story, you'd be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry you went through that." Yeah. That's scary just by itself, right? But when the Zelda character starts going, "I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. Me and Gage are going to get you." Mm-hmm. You realize that she's just a chess piece getting played by the Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
Right? Like Zelda and Gage and anyone who comes back are all just chess pieces getting played by this ancient, bigger evil.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're working together, I mean, you thought that memory sucked before that happened. And then when it happens, you're like, "Oh my God, it's really going to suck."
It's gotten worse.
Right. Which is an amazing, like moment. Like,
I did forget one more thing. What the fuck is up with that painting?
what do you mean?
There's a painting when she has the Zelda flashback, and you see it again when the daughter goes to the wife's parents' house. Mm-hmm. There's a painting of like this weird looking woman in a blue dress holding a knife.
Oh, I don't remember that at all.
Oh, I was waiting for you.
No, I don't remember that.
Because you're like my go-to like Lynch guy and like symbolism and shit. And I was like, George is gonna have the answer.
Nope.
And we're gonna get to the bottom. All right, well then I guess that's for the fans to tell me.
Yeah,
I guess.
you let us know.
Yeah,
let us know on the Facebook page. Tell us what.
Let me know what the fuck that's all about.
Good.
Okay, so where would you rate the film? Because this episode we went a little long on this one because it's a good. It's a good movie. Like obviously because we had a good discussion about it.
I mean, I'm just gonna be upfront about it. Like it obviously should be fresh, and I think that I do agree with a lot of the arguments about the fact that it's a little distasteful without earning it. I did not like the running over the kid and then having the bouncing bloody shoe in the road. I thought that was
that's a little
bullshit.
cheese ball, yeah.
Right. So, I think there's some places where it falls down, but I think as a movie, if I was a person who watched all kinds of movies, had no allegiance or affection for horror movies in particular, I would, just on the strength of cinematography and acting and the score, I'd put it somewhere like 63, 64. But in terms of horror movies, like if I was ranking horror movies made in the years around that horror movie was made, I would put it in the top 10 of the horror movies in its bracket of years, like 2 or 3 years around it.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing, is in a horror movie countdown, I think it ranks way higher just because it has so many unique things going for it that other horror movies didn't, sort of like Candyman does.
Yeah.
Because there's flaws in Candyman or whatever, but it's just like an unforgettable fucking scare fest, right? So on Rotten Tomatoes, I'd give it like 64, 65. In terms of horror movie countdowns, I put it way higher.
What would you give it in percentage for horror film? 'Cause that's where I'm going to rate it.
Well, I think I don't think there's any way to do a countdown of the 50 best horror films of all time and not have it in it.
Yeah.
Right? And there's like a million horror films.
Yeah.
So like in that,
It was in Bravo's top 100.
right. So in that percentage, I feel like it's like in the 80s, 90s because it did what it was supposed to do at the time, and that's a bigger subject. Like the bigger discussion is like, I saw amazing interview I highly recommend with Kyle MacLachlan from Twin Peaks today, where they asked him about his experience on Twin Peaks. And one of the questions they asked him was, are you gratified that younger audiences are getting back into it? And he said, yeah, he's like, it's actually surprising because he's like, as an actor, I'm aware that things made like late 80s, early 90s had a pace and a rhythm and beats that don't really work right now.
Yeah.
Right. So, things are faster now and different, and like, you're not gonna enjoy things that were built in the way that they were built for that time. Right.
Yeah.
So like the fact that Pet Sematary, it was built for its time. So I understand that like we're in a different time and the beats are different and like the special effects are different or like whatever, but you got to remember the context in which it was. And in the context in which it was, I think that it was the scariest movie in the year it was made. I think it scared more people in the year it was made than any other movie that I can remember in that year. So like it got the job done at the time it was supposed to get the job done.
Yeah.
Right. So in that sense, I mean, that's like a 90% movie. But what do you think? This is the first time you saw it.
First time I saw it, how it's edited right now, I think my initial gut was telling me 75%.
Wow.
But I know that's because it's my first viewing. You've seen it a few times. You've read the book, and there are some cheesy parts. So like, if I had to like, in my head when I rate it, like I can cut out that stupid him, that no that shit.
Yeah.
And since we interviewed the guys, they told us all the behind the scenes shit. They told us about the second ending. In my head, I'm like, well, that's clearly a better ending. So let's go with that. Right. So I'm totally cheeseball on it. But as a movie itself, the one that everyone can go and watch, I think 69, 70%.
I knew you were going to say 70. Because that's exactly where it should be. It should be 70%.
It's not as a film, like there are definitely things that dated it. There's some things that don't work.
Yep.
But like we said before, it does everything a horror film sets out to do.
Yep.
And it does it well and memorable.
Yep.
So there we go. That's Pet Sematary.
Awesome. Yet another underrated movie in the How Low Can We Go series.
Exactly. And if you like this episode, because we went a little longer on this one because there's a lot of jelly in this in this donut. I really like this movie. Check out our episode with the guys who did Unearthed and Untold.
Oh, amazing.
Path to Pet Sematary.
Yep.
A lot of P's in there. They did a really amazing in-depth look at this film. They went to the scene, or they went to the sites. They interviewed like the lead green Marines at the Pet Cemetery. Interviewed a lot of cool fucking people. Check that episode out.
Yeah, they did something that is not usually done with horror documentaries. Is they interviewed like locals, extras.
Yeah, one lady
people
talked
who
about
pitched in.
One lady recalled Stephen King walking through her yard while writing Pet Cemetery.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking amazing.
They got some cool bits. So
that's in our back catalog. Check that out.
Check that out. And if you like this episode and want to hear more content like this, head on over to our Patreon. Support the show any way you can. We really appreciate it. It helps us produce some more awesome content. We got a lot of cool shit in the works right now. So the more you can help, the more better shit you get, and more Facebook Lives, which we had a blast doing just
that was so fun.
on Tuesday.
The thing is, right now,
right.
when you subscribe on iTunes or Google Play, wherever you're subscribing to the podcasts, we really appreciate it. That really helps us out because it's a thing where people know that they're going to get the content without having to look for it on Facebook, because we're pretty active on Facebook, and that's where people are finding us, but that's some work. So if you subscribe, makes it easier for us.
Subscribe, give us a good rating.
We'd love it.
And until then, stay scary, watch a bunch of horror films, and join us on the Facebook page for more horror conversations.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.